What is up? What's up? What's up? What is the deal? What is the deal? What is the deal? Make sure you're hitting that like button when y'all come up in here. Make sure you're hitting that like button when you come up in here. What's the deal? What's the deal? What is the deal? Sorry I'm late. That's what's going on. so sorry I'm late. But I'm here now. Your boy is here right now. So make sure you're hitting that like button when y'all come up in here. So we could talk about this game coming up on Sunday, how important this game is to the season, and what I think that this really is gonna mean going forward. So make sure you're hitting that button when y'all come up in here. Make sure you're hitting that like button when y'all come up in here. Already. What's the deal? What is going on? What's up? What's up? What's up? Yeah, hey, we know we have to take a week off, bye week. I know I was supposed to be. I was planning on doing some last week, but got super busy. Got super busy. I didn't get a chance to. Plus, like I said, it was the bye week. Even though I did kind of want to talk about the all the craziness going on with the Algier situation, stuff like that. So I did have something to talk about, but I just got real busy. So I didn't get a chance. Like I said, got busy again today, and that's the reason why I'm so late. I apologize for being this late because I should have started at 8:30, like I said I was going to. But hey, that's a conversation for another day. But make sure you hit that like button when y'all come up in here and get talking about it, because the Houston Texans got, I mean, we've been talking about this when the schedule first came out, that this stretch of games is the most important stretch of games of the season because of basically we face in the middle. I mean, you got Miami, and then the last game is against Tennessee. But in the middle, you at Kansas City and you home against Baltimore on Christmas Day. Um, and like we've been saying that from the beginning, that this stretch was going to be the most important. I think even more important once you lost to Tennessee at home. So now that Tennessee game is not a cakewalk thing. I mean, because you lost to them the last time you played them, and it was at home. And I'm actually going to talk about that because that actually kind of bleeds into some of the conversation about this Dolphins game as well, and some of the concerns about this Dolphins game also. So I'm gonna let more y'all get up here real quick before we get started to break it down. But this 4 games is a very very important stretch, and this is going to basically determine not only if the Texans are in the playoffs, is going to determine the Texans seeding in the playoffs, and it's also going to, is this team even ready to go into the playoffs? I see Ohio State fans talking about, because they losing to Michigan, that they don't need to be in the college playoffs and they don't want to win the championship. Like they don't want to win the national championship, which I think is asinine. Lose to what you call it, just because you lose to Michigan, that you don't want to win a national championship. That's stupid. I don't feel that way about this next stretch of games, because there's a way the Texans don't win another game and still make the playoffs, or on one game and still make the playoffs. Um, even if that's the case, even with that being the case, it's not that I don't think the Texans deserve to be in the playoffs, or I don't want the Texans to win a Super Bowl. It's just that I don't think, if they don't win any games or only win one out of these next 4, I don't believe that they're ready to do anything significant in the playoffs. They'll be lucky to win a playoff game because of also the opponents. We're gonna break down the playoff scenario, how they look as well. But so, like I said, Houston will take on the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins team that's fighting for their playoff life right now. The Houston Texans will face them at NRG Stadium on Sunday. This is what this game is looking like. So, CJ on the year has thrown for 63% over 3,000 yards, 3,117 yards, which is 10th in the NFL right now, averaging 200 and averaging 39 yards a game, having 15 touchdowns, which is 16th in the NFL, and 9 interceptions. He's been sacked this season 41 times, averaging a little over 3.5 sacks a game. Well, averaging 3 sacks a game, my bad. And has a quarterback rating of 7.9. Joe Mixon has rushed for 887 yards, which is 11th in the NFL, averaging 4.3 yards a carry, and has the touchdowns, which is tied for it's tied third. He's tied with a whole bunch of people. He's tied like 4 or 5 people with 11 touchdowns. For third place in the NFL. Sidebar, that he is 4 games left. He is 318 yards away from his career high in rushing yards, and he's 2 touchdowns away from tying his career high in touchdowns. Both of those was in 2012. I'm not 2012, in 2020 when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. When him and the Cincinnati Bengals went to the Super Bowl, that was career high in yards and touchdowns. He had 1,205 rushing yards and had 13 touchdowns. So he's 318 from tying. 300, he's 318 from tying. He's 319 from breaking, having a career high in rushing yards. He's 2 touchdowns away from tying. He's 3 touchdowns away from break high in rushing touchdowns. Uh, Nico Collins, after missing 5 games in the season, by the way, 5.5 because he only played like 5 3/4 because he only played 1/4 that Buffalo Bill game. He has 832 yards, which is 15th in the NFL. He's in 104 yards a game, which leads the NFL in passing and receiving yards a game, and has 4 touchdowns. Sidebar for him, he is in 4 games. He is 468 yards away from tying, 468 yards away from breaking his career high in receiving yards, which he said last year, and also 4 touchdowns away from tying his career high in receiving touchdowns. Once again, what he had created last year. I'm less confident about Nico. Nico will have to have a big game in one of these 4 games. He's gonna have to have like 150, 160, 170 yard game, which he's definitely capable of having. But he's gonna have to have a big game like that. I feel like to actually come close or breaking his career high, which he said last year. I think last year was 1297. 1,297 yards, and he would need 486 yards to actually get to 1,300 to get to that 1,300 mark. And he would need, like I say, 4 touchdowns, which is 4 games. So if he scores a touchdown every game, he would tie his career high. If he a double-digit touchdowns in 2 touchdowns in one of these games, he has a chance of actually breaking his career high, which again he said last year in receiving touchdowns. Tank on the season is actually from a guy who we thought was struggling at the beginning of the season, which he has definitely had struggles. I guess after the absence of Stephon Diggs, he's up and he has better numbers than I actually thought he was gonna have. He has 543 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now the touchdowns not great, but I'm actually surprised that he has 543 yards. And it was a little bit on that 400-yard mark just from what I've seen, but he actually has 543 yards. That he has, and he's only like 200 yards from tying his career high, which again he's only in the second year, so that's not saying a lot. On the defensive side, Danielle Hunter is in the league with sacks with 10.5 sacks. Will Anderson is 7th in the league in sacks, tied with 7th in the league in sacks because he's tied with open people. So it's really like, to be honest, it's really like he's tied at 6. But it's so many people, they just base it at 7 with 9.5 sacks. He's only a sack away from Danielle Hunter. He's on him, but Danielle Hunter has 10.5 sacks, which is 4th in the NFL, and they have Will Anderson at 7th in the NFL with 9.5 sacks. Kalen Bullock has 4 interceptions, and then Kamari Lassiter and Darius Leonard Jr. on the team with 3 interceptions. So that's what the numbers are for the Houston Texans. Now, I don't want to really go through the full season of the Miami Dolphins because we know this Dolphins team is not the same Dolphins team that we've seen for the majority because Tua was gone. So like when you look at somebody like Tyreek Hill again, people I was surprised was as good as they was. Like Tyreek Hill in the season had 706 yards, 5 touchdowns. But he's only had 200-yard games. He had 117 yards last week, and then the first game of the season he had 130 yards. Those are the only 200-yard games. Then you have Waddle that has 700 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he had 99 yards last week, and then 2 weeks before he had like 140 yards. I think it was 144 yards. And then John Smith, the tight end, he has 697 yards, 602 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And he had 100+ yards last week. Now, last game, he only had like 41 yards, but he did have the game with the touchdown. The week prior, he had over 100 yards receiving. And again, it's the difference because what you have with Tua. The reason why their numbers are not as great as they could and should be, because we see what type of speed this team has and the type of points this team can put on the board. But look at Tua, and you look at Tua's numbers. These are Tua's numbers for the last 4 games. Because again, like I said, I only want to look at the last 4 games because when he first got back, he was just getting himself acclimated back to the playing. So I want to look specifically at the last 4 games because this is a very, very interesting notion. And remember, they're 3-1 in these 4 games. In the first game, Tua threw for 77.8 percentage, 288 yards, 3 touchdowns. The next game, he threw for the next game he threw for 2.5 complete percentage, 317 yards, 4 touchdowns. The following game, he threw 80.4%, 365 yards, 2 touchdowns. The game after last week, he threw for 70.2%, 331 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he's thrown for over 70. His lowest was last week at 70.2 complete percentage. His lowest yard total was the first game at 288 yards. And his lowest touchdown was the last two. He's thrown for 2 touchdowns. So in those 4 games, he's thrown for a combined 11 touchdowns in 4 games, and is thrown for over 1,000 yards. Thrown for looking close to around 12, thrown from around 1,200 yards. So around 1,200 yards, 11 pounds, and is thrown an average of 75 complete percentage. That's damn good. And he's only been sacked 9 times. He was sacked 9 times in that game. Now, the game that he threw 80%, 365 yards, that's the game against Green Bay that they lost on Thursday Night Football. He was sacked in that game 5 times. And also, no turnovers, no interceptions. And the reason why that's telling, because I want you to look at what the Texans have done defensively when it comes to the passer, at home specifically. So, at NRG, the Texans are only allowing the opposing quarterbacks to throw for 49.7%, only throwing 172 yards, and is only throwing 1.3 touchdowns a game. So let me repeat that. The Texans defense has allowed the opposing quarterback inside NRG Stadium to only throw for 49.7 complete percentage, 172 yards, and 1.3 touchdowns. That sounds great. This is the troubling part. The last time I played a game at NRG was against Tennessee, where Will Levis, of all people, threw 75%, 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he did have an interception. But he threw he threw over 25% better than what the Texans defense is allowing. For over 100 yards better than what the defense allows, and it threw for a touchdown better than when the defense allowed. Also allowed 3 huge plays, including a 70-yard touchdown to tight end, where Miami Dolphins have John Smith, who the Texans seen before. Ben used to play for the Tennessee Titans, but now under this Mike McDaniel's offense, which is a Kubiak Shanahan scheme, and also need a Tyreek Hill and Waddle and an accurate quarterback like Tua that's throwing 77, 72, 80, and 70% collectively. Against, not to mention, I even mentioned the running back David A-Chain, who's rushed for 604 touchdowns, but on the receiving end has 474 yards and 6 touchdowns. He, by himself, would be the Texans' third best receiver at the running back position, because of the offense that they run, because of the quarterback that they have, because of the system that they have. The Texans defense has to find a balance between how they was only allowing, what was it, like 30 complete percentage against people like 30% complete percentage against people like AR and Trevor Lawrence, and who else was in NRG? Possibly the league MVP and Josh Allen. Remember Josh Allen, who everybody's going Google Gaga over, talking about he's the front runner for the MVP and running away with the MVP. Remember at NRG, we held him to 9 for 30. Now, he did have a 49-yard touchdown, which was actually, I feel like, the difference of the game, and it made the game, because if he doesn't have that 50-yard touchdown, we're not talking about the Dolphins. We're not talking about the Bills in that light as far as that game being that close. When it came down to Miami kicking that game-winning field goal, the walk-off field goal, to beat Buffalo, had that big play, because we were shutting down the pass throughout the whole entirety of the game. And when you allow a big play, which I've said at numerous times, this defense, as good as it is, the 8 sacks that it had against Will Levis, this defense gives up big plays in every single game. We let it happen last week. The last time we played against Jacksonville. We let it happen against Jacksonville with Mac Jones. This defense allows big plays every single game. There's not been not one game this season, not one game that this Texan defense has not allowed a big play, in which I mean a big play, anything that's over 30 to 35 yards. And they've gave up well over that. Gave up 70-yard touchdowns to Will Levis. We gave 80-yard touchdowns or 65-yard touchdowns, wherever they was, to AR. We let Cooper Rush get a 70-yard touchdown on Monday Night Football. We have allowed every team that we played against, every quarterback, to have at least one big play. Some had multiple against us. We've allowed that all the time. Speed of Waddle, the speed of A-Chain, even the speed of John Smith coming from the tight end position. You're talking about, this defense needs to make sure to keep those big plays at a minimum, especially when your offense on the opposite side is not cashing in and not making on your Kamari Lassiter 3 interceptions, your Derek Stingley 3 interceptions, your Kalen Bullock 3 interceptions. 4 interceptions, I'm sorry. Your front 7 all getting 5+ sacks this year. Well, your front 7, but your front 4. You're getting 5 sacks from which way on this defensive line. And Danielle Hunter is 4th in the league with 10.5, and Will Anderson is tied at 7 in the league at 7 with 9.5 sacks. Both Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, both on the Vegas odds, are both top 5 to win defensive player. You got 2 bookend pass rushers on the same team. Both of them are in the top 5 of Vegas odds to win Defensive Player of the Year. This defense has kept you in games, won games throughout this whole season. This defense has never been the reason for the Texans to lose a game this season. The Texans have lost. The game that you can come close to this probably C game, but the offense got cashed in. I do think the defense was a lot, because I do think the defense is really to blame, because I don't care if the defense had a pick 6 in that game. The defense right after that, the defense allowed a 70-yard touchdown like that, and that is what lost the game. Now the offense didn't do anything after that. You had kind of missing the field goal, and I know you don't want to rehash that again, but that's the problem, the situation when it comes to the Texans, other 2024 Houston Texans. So we need Joe Mixon, Nico Collins, who both of them actually have been the team's MVPs. I'm gonna have to lean more towards Joe Mixon, because they both missed a lot of time. Joe Mixon missed 3 games, Nico missed 5. So since Mixon missed less, Mixon's been here more. It's been more of the games. Mixon missed the Minnesota game. He missed the Minnesota game. He missed the Jags game. What other game did he miss? Oh, he missed the Bills game. So he's missed 3 games this. So and we know that Nico Collins missed 5 games. I think that Joe Mixon is definitely been the league MVP, the team MVP, especially with us not having a good offensive line, and us not having a good offensive line this season. But he's still able to make stuff. He's still able to make do what he makes do. I think that we're gonna have to lean on these guys in this next stretch, these next 4 games. We're gonna have to lean on them specifically, go ahead and take us over and be able to get us to get into the playoffs. And shout out to that boy Chris for the super chat love. Definitely appreciate that. Admit that this team is pretenders. How the Cincinnati Bengals, which is way better than the Texans, got a worse record than this team. And shout out to Chris for the super chat love. The Bengals are not way better than Houston Texans, because the Bengals have a horrible defense. This is tremendous. I've never backed down and never not said this. I've always said this, even at the last year, and people want to put CJ over Joe Burrow because we went to Cincinnati and beat the Bengals. I don't understand that logic. I just don't. I don't understand. Just because you like, it's different if you do it on a playoff scenario, and but just a one game, just a game in the middle of November in the regular season. I mean, by that logic, Trevor Lawrence is better than CJ because Trevor Lawrence CJ. AR, who else beat CJ last year? Bryce Young is better than CJ because Bryce Young beat CJ last. So I don't really like that logic, but I've always said that Joe Burrow, even after last year, Joe Burrow was the second. If the Oh, I think I lost y'all. If the Bengals had a good record, I think that Joe Burrow is the complete front runner for the MVP. I think that Joe Burrow is playing out of his mind. Him and Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is definitely making this claim to being the best receiver in the league. Jamar Chase only has 5 yards more than Nico, and Nico missed 5 games. So I feel like if Nico would have never missed any games this season, even if he had the exact same amount of yards as a Jamar Chase, it's relatively close. It's relatively close. He would be having relatively close to the same amount of yards. So, but the reason why they have a worse record is because their defense is horrible. The Cincinnati Bengals, this version of the Cincinnati Bengals looks extremely like the 2020 Houston Texans when Deshaun Watson led the league in yards. He was top 5 in touchdowns. I think he was like second in complete percentage, and third in passer rating, and he also led the league in yards per attempt, which means so for him to have that high of a percentage and that high of a quarterback rating, and he's still throwing the football downfield. So it's not like he's only doing like little dinks and dunks and screens and stuff like that, little check down. No, he's actually pushing the ball downfield. Had that, I think his yards per attempt was like at 9. It was almost 10. It was almost 10 yards per attempt. So he led the league in yards led the league in yards. He was second in like quarterback rating and third in completion percentage. 'Cause I know he was top 3 in all, and he was top 3 in both those categories. One of them he was one. I mean, one of them he was 2, and the other one he was 3. And it was behind. It was him, Aaron Rodgers, and Drew Brees. Those were the top 3 in that mix. And then in touchdowns with 33, I think he was like 7th or something like that in touchdowns. That was a year that a lot of people had touchdowns. But because the Texans defense was so bad, and the Texans defense was just bad, we just let games in. Uh, I actually think that Joe Burrow's defense is worse than that Texans defense, because I think you could have won some games with that Texans defense. I just think sometimes some of those situations, just the game bounce our way. But that's the reason why the Bengals have a better record. I mean, have a worse record than us. But I don't think that they're a better team than us, because I think the Texans defense is a way better defense. And I think the Texans defense, even though they can't put up points like this one can again that we're gonna be playing against, I do think that the Texans defense could slow them down enough. And I do think that the offense can be in the mix, and it just depends on it really just on how the game goes, for the lack of a better words. Because their defense is that bad, I think Joe Mixon can run, and then Joe Mixon gonna be extremely motivated. You thought he was motivated to play Dallas, he'll be extremely motivated to play Cincinnati. So if we were ever to play, I definitely think that we will beat the Bengals. I know I said something about not fearing the Bengals, but I didn't want to play them in the playoffs, because I think if they would happen to get the 7th seed, which they still have a shot, I don't really, because of what I'm about to talk about in a minute. But all the Texans pretenders, I'm gonna say this because I had to think about this and reflect after the bye week during the Texans are not as bad as I've been vocalizing here on the channel. A lot of times, just right after the game, and you feeling a certain way, and you feeling a certain way during the week, and you just kind of like got like just a sour taste about this team and how they've been playing, how they've been performing. Because, we probably came into the season a little bullish on the Texans, a little bit too much dip on our chip, if you want to say. Like we came into the season just a little bit too highly ranked and too hyped up on this team. I've been saying this. I said this before the season started. Said it last season that in the Texans franchise history, that the 2011 Houston Texans are the best Texan team. Now, this team can have something to say about that, and I said that this was the best I felt about a team going into a season, but I wasn't ready to say that this is already the best Texas team ever. There have been people that I know that have been saying going into the season that this team was a better team than that 2011 team, and I'm like, I don't believe it, because that 2011 team ain't play. Well, 2011 team has already played and already did what they did. This team ain't stepped on the field yet. So I don't think that this team is better than that team. However, this team is better than what I've been giving it credit so far. Again, have they been winning the way we want them to win? Absolutely not. Have some games that they were supposed to win that should have won? Absolutely. Have they looked terrible in moments? Absolutely. Have they really had a really great moment? Not really. They really haven't. They really haven't had a great moment. That Detroit game could have been trending that way. And I'm not going to sit up here and say that game against Dallas, which is probably the Texans' best performance, is really the Patriots game, honestly. In that game, the defense gave up multiple big plays in that game. They gave up more to Drake May. But that might be the Texans' best complete game, possibly. I think the first game of the season, compared to the opponent that you played, the best game of the season so far was week 1, because that was a good opponent, division. We coming in both thinking that we're going to win the division, have aspiration to win the division. Indianapolis still has a shot to win the division, even though we swept them. That game in its, like, as it stands right now, is the best game. As far as teams that we beat, the best team that we beat is Buffalo. But the Texans offense didn't look all that good against Buffalo. Actually played not well. It was an okay performance, but that's also the game you lost Nico in. The defense played phenomenal in that game. Honestly, the defense outside that Keon Coleman 49-yard touchdown, the defense actually played phenomenal game. I know the biggest score total is the Dallas game, and it was a national televised game, so it kind of looks like that. But we really haven't had a great moment. And know in these next 4 games if you're going to have a great moment outside of beating teams in the Dolphins, not the Dolphins, but in Kansas City and Baltimore. If you beat those 2 teams, outside just the sure of beating them, especially on national television games, I don't know if you're really gonna have a real great moment in any of these games, but I do think the Texans team is better than what I've been giving them credit for and how I've been reacting and acting about this team so far. And I think that the Texans are going to play well coming off the bye week. I think this bye week came in a good time. I think those guys were a little bit mentally taxed. I mean, think about it. They played in the Hall of Fame. They were the first. Them in Chicago were the first 2 teams that have training camp. And from training camp all the way into December, they've been going nonstop. Games and practices and games and practice and games and practice. So they definitely need a break. And I think that they'll have a moment to sit back, look at what's been going on. And I've been in the situation before. I've actually been in the situation on a team that we had aspirations going into this. We going to win a championship. We going to the team. We're going to win state. We were the best team in our class. The best team in our class, and we was going to go in to win state. Everybody that we were going to go in and win state. Like that was we were going to go in and win state. And we came out the first game of the season, played extremely well. We actually played at NRG, played extremely well. Week 2, we went up and played an upper class. We went up and played a higher class because I played in 4. We played at that time, we played 4A. Now my school's a 5A because of how they realigned. Now they got, because when I was in school they didn't have 6A. 5A was the top, and then once I graduated, changing it to in the 5 and 6A. But we were 4, and we went up and played against a 5A school, and lost. Actually lost. It was actually Houston Lamar, the with Flash Gordon. Like that's actually who we actually played against him in school. They beat us, and after that we went on a winning streak. We actually won out. We didn't lose again. We won out, but we won a lot of games in a closer fashion than we thought we should. And it was like towards the end of the season, like we was like on the 7-game winning streak. And we had like we was just all talking, like we were like, hey, we've been winning, but we walking around here like losing because we wasn't winning the way that we thought we should win. We wasn't dominating the way we thought that we should win. Like we wasn't out there dominating the way we should win. And we basically had to sit back and be like, hey, we got to get our stuff together. And once we did that, we started winning the way that we thought that we was going to win. We started actually going out there and performing in the way that we thought we were supposed to win. Now we got into the playoffs and we won a couple playoff games. We didn't get the state. We actually didn't get state. We thought we were gonna win state championship. We actually didn't get to even go to state because we overlooked Texas City. We lost to the Texas City Stingrays. I'll never forget that game. We overlooked them because we were thinking about playing against Lamarck, and we overlooked them, and there you go. But I mean, we got upset in the playoffs because we overlooked the team. But that's a conversation for another day. But I'm just saying I understand that aspect of it, of being a part of a team, and even if you're winning, you're not winning the way that you thought you're gonna win. So you kind of like, even though, hey, we 8-5, we lead in the division, but it don't feel like it, and everybody, the mood is down. And I do think that this bye week has came in at the right time. Like, okay, hey, look, let's sit back and let's reflect and let's actually look and see exactly what we can do and actually go out here and play ball and go out here and do what we're supposed to do. Take this AFC South, win these games like we're supposed to win, play the standard of football that we're supposed to be playing. And shout out to that boy Chris for the super chat. Love, definitely appreciate that. Tank Dell is awful. He's supposed to be number 2. How Schultz had more catches than him. I mean, 40 plus. And Chase has 90 plus. I'd rather have Will Fuller. Actually, the Chris for the super chat. Love. Tank is not awful. I do think that having Stephon Diggs and also Bobby Slowick not knowing how to utilize receivers, I think that kind of played a part of it. It's kind of similar. I always say like Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade and LeBron James. 3 of them were all stars. You know, Dwayne Wade in Miami, LeBron in Cleveland, Chris Bosh in Toronto. All 3 of them were the best player on their team. They all were all stars. They were all NBA players. They all was leading their teams to the playoffs. Dwayne Wade won the final. LeBron led Cleveland to the finals and got swept by the Spurs. Toronto. I'm trying to think. Did they didn't make it? They made an Eastern Conference Championship game with Chris Bosh. I think they might have just won a playoff series. But they were good basketball teams and good basketball players. Did you put all together? Somebody gonna have to take a back seat because there's only one basketball. So only somebody's gonna have to sit back and take a back seat. Chris Bosh was the one who took the back seat. So with Nico emerging as the Nico not only emerged as the number 1 receiver because I think he was number 1 last year. Him being, I think, without hurt, he was the best receiver in the league. Nico was making a complete stake for being the best receiver in the league. Hence why he still leads the league in yards per. Because think about this: his last play when he got hurt was a 67-yard touchdown. His very next catch when he comes back to missing 5 games was a 75-yard touchdown that got called back because of Larry Tunsil illegally downfield that had nothing to do with the play. He still would have scored that touchdown regardless. That's right there. Then the following week, he had a 25, 30-yard touchdown he called back because of an illegal shift that, once again, that had nothing to do with him. So because of that right there, and then also Stephon Diggs being a complete security, we talk about tight ends being security blankets. Stephon Diggs is a complete security blanket because anytime CJ threw towards number one direction, he made a play for him. He went out there and made sure he made a play for him. So I think that that is the reason why Tank took a step back. And I think that's why Tank ended up taking a step back. They took like a back seat and took a step back. But since because actually, once both of them was gone, when like the first game that Stephon Diggs was hurt and Nico still wasn't playing, Tank went out there and had like so. Tank definitely showed you. Like I said, I'm surprised his numbers was as good as they were. Now again, I knew the touchdowns was that iffy, and that's also coming on CJ a little bit too, because CJ, he should have touchdown against Green Bay that he dropped. But then also he should have had time against Detroit where CJ didn't throw it right and threw it late, underthrew him. It was an interception, and I think it was another one that either like miscommunication or something like that. But it was another situation where he should have at least two, if not three more touchdowns. He should, and that's a combination of both him and CJ both being at fault. Shout out to that boy, Chris for the super chat love. Definitely appreciate that. Tank has one. Tank has had one game with one catch, no excuse. No, I mean I'm just saying like I don't think that he's awful. And to your Will Fuller point, I'm actually not a Will Fuller hater. I actually like Will Fuller a lot. I have no problem. I would like a Will Fuller type. I actually think that's something that the Texans need to target. I actually think the Texans need to target a defensive back, corner, safety, whatever. I know people corner. You got Kamara Last, you got Derek Stingley. I wouldn't mind having having another outside corner and moving Kamara Lassiter into playing the slot, or drafting another safety that go back there and pair with Kalen Bullock, especially when you have somebody like Petrie playing in the box. That's what I would personally do. Or I do think that we need to add in somewhere in the first, second, or third round, in one of those three rounds, we need to add a receiver. And we need to add a speedy receiver. Because Tank, I think people can Tank is small because he's short and he's skinny. They think he's a fast receiver. And he's not. He ran a 4.5. He ran 4.5. He's a very good route runner, but he's not fast, especially for his height and weight. He's not as fast as he should be to be dominant with that height and weight. So we need so if you talk about we need a guy, actual guy who go out there, actual burner, go out there and break up the coverage, a guy who can take the top off the defense outside. Because Nico can't be your biggest receiver and your fastest receiver too. Hard for that. It's kind of hard for him. You put a little bit too much on his plate. I do think that we need to go out there and get a faster receiver, so somebody to help take some of that pressure off of Nico as well, and able to take the top off the defense. But also, it will also help if Bobby Slowick knew how to dial up plays, because I think this offense could be a lot smoother if he knew how to dial up plays when you had a Stephon Diggs and a Nico Collins and a Tank Dell all in the field at the same time. My personal opinion. That's just what I think. This is my personal opinion. That's what I think. But going back into this game against the Dolphins, I do think that the Texans will give up a big play. You talk about Tyreek Hill and Waddle Smith, and look at how good Tua's been playing, and but also how good this defense plays at home, especially when it comes to the secondary. Stingley is making a case to I don't know if he's making a case for defensive player of the year because he don't have enough interceptions. He got like for a cornerback to do that, you gotta get interceptions and touchdowns. But he is definitely making the case of being an all pro and being considered one of the top five cornerbacks in this league. I actually think because also this Dolphins defense is not that good of a defense themselves. And I mean, they gave up both 100. If I'm not mistaken, they gave up both 100 yards last week to both Jamal Adams and Gary Wilson. So I think that Nico gets over 100 yards. I think Nico gets a touchdown. I think Mixon gets over 100 yards. I think Mixon gets a touchdown, maybe even two, but he's receiving though, and one on the ground. I think CJ has one of his better games. I think CJ. I don't think he's gonna. I don't think this season he's gonna have a 350, 400 yard, three touchdown game. He might have a game where he throws 3 touchdowns, but it's not going to be a 350 plus. I don't think he's going to get 350. I don't think he's had it so far. I don't think he's going to get it in the next couple games. But I do think he gets 300. I think he throws 302 touchdowns in this game. Uh, and I think the Texans win 24-20. I think the Texans win 24-20. I don't think that Tua is going to throw 75%, which he's averaging, but I also don't think he's going to throw 49% what the defense is averaging. I think Tua has around like a 65% game, which is above average. I think he has a 65. I think he throws for like 60%. Um, I think he throws for over 20 yards, and I think he gets 2 touchdowns. I do think he gets a turnover because in those 4 games he didn't throw any turnover. He didn't throw any turnovers. I think he turns the foot over. I think he throws an interception. I think he gets sacked a couple times as well. I think he gets 2 sacks. He gets sacked at least twice. Um, and I think, like I said, win 24-20. Um, and I think it's a good game. I think it's a good game to watch. And that's why I think it's going to end up happening. Shout out to boy Chris for the super chat love again. Definitely that. He said he'd take Jalen Daniels over CJ. I mean, that's funny. Plenty of people saying they'll take CJ over a lot of people last year, and now they're saying something different. I mean, how that Brock Purdy thing looking? Everybody talking about that, like Brock Purdy was a top 10 quarterback. How that Brock Purdy thing looking? Somebody please let me know how that Brock Purdy thing looking. Before I get into the rest of the games and the playoffs, I do want to talk about some of the newses. I didn't really get a chance to weigh in on the Aziz Shair suspension last week. I think it's very telling that the NFL not only issued a suspension and Jair appealed, and his appeal was reviewed and denied all in an hour span. 2 days after, 2 days after the incident, and all this was taken in a 24-hour span. So the game incident was on Sunday. You had Monday, no news. Tuesday suspended. Wednesday the suspended gets up gets Wednesday the suspension gets reviewed and upheld after the review. All that happened in a 2-day span, from the suspension to the appeal, the review of the appeal, and it also being upheld. And it was a 3-game suspension. A guy who hasn't been suspended, and a guy who hasn't been ejected. To me, it was very simple. Very simple. I said it when the suspension first came out, and then I also said before the appeal, and then I said after the appeal. Then I shout out to everybody in the Discord, because anybody that's part of the Discord, they know this because I was saying it all week last week. The NFL did not want Aziz Shair nowhere near Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson on national televised games. Because next Saturday on NBC, the Texans go to Kansas City. Next Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, 4 days after, the Houston Texans will host the Baltimore Ravens on Netflix on Christmas Day. They don't want him nowhere near those games. If the Texans' last 4 games would have been Miami, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Tennessee, he would have got suspended probably for 1 game because they probably wouldn't want him on the field against Tua. But because of how everybody was running out there with picket force and the outcry from everybody on the media, people saying it was a dirty hit, you got defenders crying and talking the way they were talking, just complete nonsense and pandering to the audience, to the fans, because the fans were outraged, which the fans didn't even really watch the game. And it's all because what you call it, was it Mary Hodge? Not Mary Hodge. Used to be a fullback Dallas Cowboys who called the game because of his initial reaction to the hit is what fed everything. Because when you go watch the last Saturday ACC the SEC championship game and you see how Georgia quarterback got hit, that was way worse. Now as Saeed said, his leg got bent back, the helmet got popped off. His way worse. Ain't nobody talking about that. Ain't nobody say nothing about that. And that was a more televised game. But because the announcers didn't blow it up, everybody, because a lot of people don't know how to think. They rely on this. They rely on YouTube and other comments and people on TV and people on the radio and all these other things to actually have an opinion. People very rarely have and inform their own opinion. They would rather someone else create the opinion and they adopt it. Now, some of it is because for survival, because they don't want to be really good for how they really feel. I don't know. Some people are just don't know. Just don't want, just lazy. Don't want to think. I don't know exactly what all the ins and outs specific do to each person, but the masses of people don't have their own opinion. They rely on other people's opinions to have one, and that's what happened in that situation. He had an initial reaction, opinion, and everybody fed up off. And my point remains the same. And then for the appeal to happen and be denied less than 24 hours, no one did. And the Texans were on a bye week, so there was no rush to actually suspend him because the Texans had a full bye week. It wasn't like you were suspending him and had to review it because he had a game on that he potentially could play. No. No. And a guy with no priors as far as, I don't care about, he was fined all these different times. Branch got fined twice in one game. Because he got out that game because he had 2 illegal hits in that game. Then he got 2 fines off of one game and then was able to play the following week against us on Sunday Night Football. So don't he got priors? Shouldn't he? Because he actually got taken out of the game. He actually got taken out of the game because he had multiple offenses in one game. So shouldn't he also got suspended? Oh, because he's a receiver and receivers or shouldn't be as protected as quarterbacks. Man, give me a break. He ain't want that boy nowhere near Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, especially on national televised games. That's the reason why they went searching for him choking Tom Brady and him pushing Caleb Williams out of bounds and him also hitting Tony Pollard out of bounds. Like that, they went and looked and fished for that so they could paint this narrative so they could have a reason not to have him on that field against Patrick Mahomes and also Lamar Jackson. Because if he's on that field and something happens, he gets a big hit on them. Oh, especially somebody like both of them and Pat. Because Pat, he would try to fake a slide and get an extra couple yards, so they look out for that. Because we know that Pat does it, he fakes the slide. So, hey, he faking the slide, he gonna definitely get chin checked. He definitely gonna get checked. And then Lamar Jackson running quarterback. So they knew what they were doing. The fix was already in. They didn't want him nowhere near those guys. That's all it was. He didn't want them. They didn't want them nowhere near those guys on national televised game. So everybody, because they don't want a situation where that Mahomes and Lamar Jackson are not able to be in the playoffs, especially after something they can prevent by not letting Aziz Shire play. That's because they could at least reduce it down to 2, but then he'd still be playing on Christmas Day against Lamar Jackson on Netflix. They didn't want that. They want to stay away from him as much as possible and hope that they don't have to face him in the playoffs. And then maybe in the playoffs they can, because at least they can sell them being in the playoffs. If like Mahomes or Lamar didn't make the playoffs, it's just a worse situation for the NFL. So that's why they did that. Very simple. Like I said, if it was any other opponents, let's say if it was Cleveland and and who else next? Like I said, just like Indianapolis or Jacksonville, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't care about it. And then Jacksonville think they slid trying to put the Trevor on IR, and then the narrative was painted, oh, he's out for the season because of concussion. No, he's out because he haven't had surgery on his shoulder, which the previous like 4 weeks. Like, come on now. Come on now. No. Christian Harris, and I seen somebody had put what I think about Christian Harris return. Christian Harris and Kenyon Green, both been practicing. I don't know if they were actually full participants. I know the other day, was starting. Zach was starting over Kenyon Green in practice. I think Kenyon Green is going to start the game as long as he play. Uh, Christian Harris, we need him. I was Erie because the guy Leary, I mean, because the guy hasn't played none this season, has only practiced like 35 minutes a year. He practiced 35 minutes at one practice at one training camp and got hurt and didn't practice no more this season. So I was kind of like, I don't know. You gonna put him when you play 3 games and 11. You gotta go against the Speed against Miami, the best quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, and then Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I don't know. He ain't practiced none this season. I don't know. He probably got out of shape. He probably lost weight. I don't know. But because we're thin at the linebacker position right now, we need the help. And then also with Jalen Petrie himself also being out with the having pec surgery, with a torn pec, and had that surgery on. In this stretch, especially leading into the playoffs, you definitely need him. Because again, a couple weeks, I was like, hey man, he shouldn't even play. You definitely need him, and I do think that he's going to be an impact. I don't know how well he's going to play against Miami. If he plays against Miami, his first game, I don't know exactly what his impact going to be in that first game because he hasn't, he hasn't played, he hasn't practiced, let alone played in so long. I don't know exactly how much rust potentially could be there, but I do think it's an upgrade and it's out some. Now let's get to talking about these week's games. So the noon o'clock games. Cleveland hosts Kansas City. Shocker. I'm gonna go Kansas City. Um, Tennessee hosts Cincinnati. Cincinnati still has a shot to make the playoffs, even though how thin it is, which is very thin. But if they beat Tennessee and another game happens the opposite way, um, because they actually face Denver. Now we're talking about because Denver has 5 losses. Yeah, Denver has 5 losses. So if Denver loses, but if Denver loses, Denver will have to lose twice. Never mind. But still plays Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken. Denver still plays Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken. So and Kansas City definitely has to play because they are they definitely they gotta win some games to guarantee they get a home field. So it's still not out of the wood for Denver. Denver still got some work to do, but Cincy still gonna be playing well. I got Cincy beating Tennessee. New Orleans hosts Washington. Um, I think go ahead and win and beat New Orleans. The New York Giants host Baltimore. I know it's won last week, which I do think was a mistake for them. But I think they're gonna lose to Baltimore. I just think they're gonna lose to Baltimore. Dallas, Carolina hosts Dallas. I keep going back and forth on this game. Could think that Carolina, like Bryce is playing well enough to win some games. They should have won last week against Philly if Xavier Legend catches that football. But Dallas loses games in the most craziest way. I've never, in as much as football as I watch, I've never seen someone block a punt, the punt, and then for Dallas to lose like that is just Dallas boys. But I got Dallas actually beating Carolina. Jacksonville hosts the New York Jets. I think Jacksonville wins. Honestly, Matt Jones. I think Jacksonville wins. In the 3 o'clock games, Denver hosts Indy. If the Texans beat Miami and Denver beats Indy, the Texans win the AFC South. The magic number is 2. So you need a combination of 2 things. 2 Texans wins or 2 Indianapolis losses. So it's 4 left. Texans can win 2 games, they win the division. Texans can lose all 4 of the games, and Indy loses all 4 of their games, or only wins 1 of their games. The Texans win the division. Well, I think it's the most likely scenario. The Texans win 1 and Indy loses 1, and the division is the division of the Texans. So I think that happens next week. I think that happens this week. I think the Texans win and Indy also loses because I have Denver beat Indianapolis. It's in Denver. I have Denver beat Indianapolis. And I have the Texans win division that way. I have that on Sunday the Texans will clinch the AFC South. Philadelphia hosts Pittsburgh. Man, they suffering right now. Philly's actually starting like, and they only got like 1 or 2. They only got 1 loss. They can see they got 1 loss, and AJ Brown and them is fighting. That might end up crumbling them, and they might end up not winning the division behind it. I beating Philadelphia. Detroit hosts Buffalo. I know Detroit is the best team in the NFC. I think Detroit might be the best team in the NFL. But I do think, because I thought they were going to lose last week against Green Bay, and Green Bay did everything they could, and they was able to beat Green Bay. I think Buffalo goes out there and wins. I think Buffalo beats Detroit. Now, check this out, though. Check this out, because this is where it gets real, real sticky and iffy. If the Texans win Sunday, stay with me now, and Pittsburgh and Buffalo both lose, hey, we're talking about Detroit team, and we also talking about Eagles team. The Eagles team is the second best team. We're talking about the number 1 and number 2 best teams in the NFC, by the way. If both those teams lose, now the Texans have a path to the number 2 seed, because that will put Buffalo with 3 losses. No, I put Buffalo at 4 losses. I'm sorry, they lost last. That put Buffalo at 4 losses. That puts Pittsburgh at 4 losses. Because Pittsburgh already lost 2, and they lost. That puts both Pittsburgh and Buffalo with 4 losses. Texas had 5. Pittsburgh's a game against Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Kansas City. Now, Buffalo, on the other hand, they had the Patriots. Forgot who the other game is. But that does open a path, a realistic path. Now, Texas will have to win out against the Texans against Kansas City and Baltimore, which is hard in its own right. But that does now open the path for the Houston Texans to be the number 2 seed, because tiebreaker over Buffalo. And the Texans will also have the tiebreaker over Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh would have lost more AFC games, because Texans will have a better conference. This is the Texans not losing no more games. The Texans only lost 2 AFC opponents, and that's the Jets and Tennessee. The other losses: Minnesota, Green Bay, what the people's name is. Detroit. In this scenario, even though Pittsburgh lost, because they would lose to Philly, and they already lost to Dallas, but they would have to lose another game to even get to this point. And they got Kansas City, AFC, Baltimore, AFC, Cincinnati, AFC. So they would end up losing. And because they play Baltimore and Kansas City in the same stretch that we play Baltimore and Kansas City. Like, Pittsburgh and Houston actually playing the same schedule, just backwards. They play Baltimore, then Kansas City. We play Kansas City, then play Baltimore. And they're in the same window that we're going to be in. We're playing 3 games in an 11-day stretch. So, again, if they lose to Philly, things have opened up for the Texans to get that number 2 seed. Other 3 o'clock game. Arizona hosts New England. I think Arizona win the game. The LA Chargers host Tampa Bay. I think Chargers win that game. Sunday night game, which I think is going to be a good one. Seattle hosts Green Bay. Both teams. Seattle's trying to keep low because, hey, the Rams just won. They're trying to make sure they keep their division. And Green Bay is trying to make sure they stay in the playoff race, because right now they're the 6th seed. Green Bay wins it. Minnesota hosts Chicago. Minnesota's trying to get back into winning the division because especially if Buffalo beats Detroit, that's the Monday night game because we got a double Monday night header. And the first one is Minnesota hosts Chicago, and especially if Buffalo beats Detroit, they're trying to be in the mix. Cause I think Minnesota have another game against. I think Minnesota got a game against Detroit, so they're trying to keep their head above float and be able to possibly potentially win the division. And no loss to Detroit. Detroit beat Minnesota. I think Chicago goes out there and win the game. I think Chicago gets a win. I think this game for me is actually very interesting because I haven't really got Caleb Williams this year. Because every time they playing, either we playing or I'm going live while we playing. Or going live while they playing, or like not showing in my market or whatever. So it's a Monday Night Football game. I'm definitely intrigued to sit back and watch this game. So I think, like I said, I think Chicago actually played well enough. They fumbled mentally to beat Detroit, but they could have played and could have actually beat Detroit on Thanksgiving a couple weeks ago. But I got Chicago Minnesota. And then the last Monday night game is the Las Vegas Raiders hosting the Atlanta Falcons. I got Atlanta winning that game, and I'm sitting back wondering because both of these teams. Well, Atlanta's been okay. The Raiders have been bad for weeks now, and I'm sitting wondering why this game wasn't flexed. Like I'm looking at obviously Detroit, Buffalo, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. You make a case for Detroit. Make a case for the Denver, Indianapolis. I don't, I don't understand why this game isn't flexed. You could actually even made a case for us. Honestly, you really could. If they got to it, because the decision has to be made 2 weeks prior. So 2 weeks. Like after the Texans beat Dallas. So that would have been, like I said, that was that's that was before that was before Thanksgiving. That was before Thanksgiving. So they only played 4 games, and they're like I said they're 3-1. The one game they lost was the week after Thanksgiving. Uh, I just think that you can make a case for us, but the obvious was Denver and Buffalo. That should have been it, and then after that should have been Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and then like I said, um, Indianapolis, Denver, and then obviously us in Miami. Especially since Tua was back, I feel like they could because they knew Tua was back. That should have been when they should. Well, never mind. Never mind. They couldn't do us or Pittsburgh because of how we playing Saturday games. So never mind. I scratch that. Scratch both of those. I just thought about it. So they couldn't have done it because we would turn around Saturday. So no, they actually couldn't have done that. But they definitely could have did. Which the most obvious one, Detroit, Buffalo, and second is Denver, Indianapolis. Though they should have did those. Those made me. So just to recap, I have Kansas City beating Cleveland. In the new o'clock games, I got Kansas City beating Cleveland. I have Cincinnati beating Tennessee. I have Washington beating New Orleans. I have Baltimore beating the Giants. I have Dallas beating Carolina. I have Jacksonville beating Jets. 3 o'clock games, I have Denver beating Indy. I have Pittsburgh beating Philly. I have Buffalo beating Detroit. I have Arizona. I have the Chargers beating Tampa Bay. Sunday night game, I have Green Bay beating Seattle. In the 2 Monday night games, I got Chicago beating Minnesota, and I got Atlanta Falcons beating the Las Vegas Raiders. And these are which are seed in the AFC. You got number 1 seed right now is Kansas City. Number 2 seed is Buffalo. Number 3 seed is Pittsburgh. Number 4 seed is Houston. And the way it will go, you have Baltimore as the 5 seed, Chargers are the 6 seed, and Denver is the 7 seed. The way the playoffs will play out, Houston will host Baltimore, Pittsburgh will host Chargers, and Buffalo will host Denver in the AFC. In the NFC, as it stands right now, Detroit has the number 1 seed, Philly has the number 2 seed. Seattle has the number 3 seed. Tampa Bay has the number 4 seed. Minnesota has the 5 seed. Green Bay has the 6 seed. Washington has the 7 seed. And as it played right now, in the wild card round, Tampa Bay will host Minnesota, host Green Bay, Philly will host Washington. That's how it stands and slates right now as pertaining to the NFL playoffs. Uh, as it stands right now, I see some good. I see some good matchups. I see somebody comment earlier. Who would I rather face out of the Chargers and the Ravens? I actually rather face the Chargers. Just because it's something different. Honestly. I know last year the Cleveland Browns. We actually played the better version of the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs. Um, I still feel like the Texans have been to the playoffs 7 times. We've won playoff games. We've only won the first round. We never won a road playoff game. We've never been past the second round. So we're 5-2. I still feel like the Texans only have 2 legitimate playoff wins, and that's the first one against the Cincinnati Bengals, and then the one in 2019 or 2019 against Josh Allen and the Bills. I feel like those are the only real legitimate playoff wins. The second one against Cincinnati, well, I feel like I feel like that really wasn't a playoff win. Obviously, the worst one is the one against the against Connor Cook and the Raiders in 2016. That's the worst playoff win that you have. And then last year, even though that was the best version of the Cleveland Browns going game because Joe Flacco played better than Deshaun Watson. Um, and people did pick the Cleveland Browns to win that game too. I I don't know. I guess maybe because it is up, and not only is a backup, it's a 40-year old Joe Flacco. Like if it's Joe Flacco in his 20s and been different, even not being a backup, just like and even if he was starting quarterback the whole season, like even if he was starting quarterback the whole season, like Andy Dalton was a starting quarterback the whole season in 2012 when we beat him the second time. It just feels I don't know. It just feels like that wasn't a good credit playoff win to me. Just me personally. Uh, so even though you'll be getting your revenge on Lamar Jackson who beat you last year in the playoffs, so I mean there is that. But that Chargers one, yeah, I think that would be a legitimate. Like you beat the Chargers, I think that's a legitimate. Like, hey, we went out there and again it's against another top tier quarterback and Justin Herbert. People be going gaga over Justin Herbert, him throwing 5,000 yards and stuff like that. So I think that would be a good solid playoff win as well. Even though the Chargers their own collapses, I mean they collapsed 27 to nothing in the first half and collapsed to Jacksonville at Jacksonville, and that's really what got Trevor Lawrence paid. So and really Trevor Lawrence really got paid off of being the #1 overall pick in that game right there, even though he threw picks in that game. Kind of similar shades of what you call it earlier this year, Jared Goff against us. And Jordan Love against us who threw 3 touchdowns. So I mean 3 interceptions. So there is but like I said, I do think as it's starting to say right now, it's starting to shape into an interesting playoff picture. And like I said, the Texans can win and clinch the AFC this week if they beat Miami and then Denver beats Indianapolis. The Houston Texans are your AFC championship. It's the eighth AFC South championship. Both CJ and D'Amico Ryan second. We will host a playoff game, and like I said, if both Baltimore and I mean not Baltimore, if both Denver and I'm sorry, if both Detroit and Philly both win against Buffalo and Pittsburgh, which again, I mean to be honest, I'm pretty sure that what the Texans need is the favorites. Anyway, I'm pretty sure Philadelphia is the favorite host Pittsburgh. I'm pretty sure that Denver is the favorite hosting Indianapolis. I'm pretty sure that Detroit is the favorite hosting Buffalo. And the Texans I know are 2.5 point favorite last time I checked of hosting hosting Miami. So all the teams all the things the break right the Texas way all host Texans, the Texans, Denver, Detroit, and Philly all host these games. All host these games. I'm pretty sure all four of them are favorites. And if that happens, night, the Texans will have already clinched the AFC South going into this next stretch with a legitimate opportunity to win because you're talking about Pittsburgh team that has to go. They wait. They have to go to Baltimore. A Pittsburgh team that has to go to Baltimore. They host Kansas City, but Baltimore they host Kansas City, and they still have to play Cincinnati to end the season at Cincinnati to end the season. So they host Baltimore. They go to Baltimore, Kansas City, and then they go to Cincinnati. That's their leverage. And Buffalo, now Buffalo is New England and the Jets, which, to be fair, the Jets, even though the Jets are not a football team, they're a very talented team, and they can, we know, they will beat us. They can actually sneak up and beat some people. If Buffalo was caught sleepwalking, the Jets and Aaron Rodgers and them could definitely, I think, get Buffalo. And there's a legitimate chance that the Texans will be the number 2 seed and then be hosting Denver instead of being the 4 seed and hosting Baltimore. You would much rather be the 2 seed. Really, you if I'm the Texans, you want to avoid being the 4 seed. You want to avoid being the 4 and 3 because if you are the 3 or if you are the 3 seed or if you're the 3 or the 2 seed, the Texans are guaranteed to not go to Kansas, and especially if Kansas for advantage. If Kansas City wins home for the advantage, which more than likely they will, especially if the Texans jump Pittsburgh, because more than likely Kansas City would have beaten Pittsburgh, uh, in that scenario. If that's the case, if Kansas City is the number 1 seed, the Texans want to avoid being anything under 3 because both 3 you are guaranteed not to go to Kansas City into the AFC Championship game because the low seed always will face the number seed. So if the Texans is the number 3 seed, and the number 3 seed, and they do their business and they beat like just we just gonna say we just gonna flip 3 and 4. We just gonna flip 3 and 4. So we gonna flip make Houston 3, Pittsburgh. So that means Houston hosts the Chargers, Pittsburgh hosts Baltimore. If Texans beat Chargers, the Texans will win. They'll face the winner of Buffalo and Denver, and because Baltimore and Pittsburgh will go to Kansas City. Yes, unless Denver shock the world and beats Buffalo scenario, then you're talking about Houston hosting the playoff game. Like with the 4 seed, the only way Houston, we the 4 seed, the only way we not hosting the second round is if both the Chargers, both the 6 and the 7 seed, both upset their home seed, which is highly unlikely. That's the only way. At least with the 3 seed, there's a legit. Because all you need is one upset for all you need is one upset for you to host the game. And if you're the 2 seed, as long as you win, you automatically host the next round because you don't face the 1 seed into the AFC Championship game. So that door path is legit. That door path, I'm pretty sure the way the chalk this week, as far as who's the favorites, is going to be favoring the Texans to have a legitimate path for the 2nd seed, at the very least the 3 seed, because the 3 seed is definitely real. If that happens, the 3 seed is definitely realistic because of Pittsburgh opponents with them playing Kansas City, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. While, like I said, Buffalo is facing. I know New England is one. I know the Jets is the other. I remember who the other one is. It might even be New England twice, if I'm not mistaken. I know New England and the Jets is in there. I know for a fact that both of those in because the reason why I know the Jets is because I was like the Jets could beat them. And the Jets is like the second to last game. That's why I know the Jets is not the season. I'm like the Jets can beat them. As soon as I seen the Jets up there, I said they can lose that Jets game. That's definitely could lose. Um, so that is why these next couple games are very important. And going back to that Aziz Shair situation, I actually think the way that people were acting and reacting to it, I feel like, especially going to this bye week, kind of like what I was saying earlier, I was brought in the team that I played on when I was in school, that a lot of times some things like that actually fuels the fire and feeds the fire and feeds into that. And when you're doing stuff like that, team starts rallying around that, and we could potentially talk about a situation where this team starts banding together and starts playing some real good football. This is the time where you want to play your best football. Going down the stretch is when you want to be, when you want to get hot. You don't want to get hot and fall. You want to get hot season and fall off. That's happened to the Texans before. In 2012, the Texans started off 5-0, then went 11-1, but lost 3 of 4. They beat Cincinnati and then got the playoffs. The last 4 games, they got blew out Monday Night Football against the, which everybody calls the Letterman Jacket games. Newsflash for everybody who wasn't paying attention. The Texans actually wore the Letterman Jackets every game that year. Like they wore those Letterman Jackets, if I'm not mistaken, I think maybe like around like week 2 or week 3. Because it was Connor Barwin, Sean Cody. It was Sean Cody and Connor Barwin's idea. Because at that time they were like the voice team. They weren't the face of the team because it was no Arian Foster and Andre Johnson, Matt Cobb, and because this is actually JJ's break. 2012 is JJ's breakout year. Um, but like the real identity of the team, like the people who were the most vocal people on the team was the Connor Darwins and the Sean Codys. Remember, Sean Cody actually was the first Texan with a show. I know they ended up giving Kevin Johnson, Kareem Jack, KJack TV, and then Brendan Scarlett had B Scar TV. Then they stopped it after Brandon Scarlett left. Um, Sean Cody was the first one with one. He was the first one with a web series, and I think he also had a radio, like a show throughout the week on 610, if I'm not mistaken. Like they had the identity of the team as far as like they were like the outgoing ones. They came up with the whole lemon jacket idea, and they actually wore them lemon jackets. Everybody on the team wore the lemon jackets all throughout the season. It just caught kind of like this Aziz Shire situation, like um just like that situation. All it takes is somebody to see on a national televised game, and it overblows it. Like the Patriots, they made a big deal on Monday Night Football because we're playing against the Patriots. Oh, they want to come out here and wear a lemon jacket like they're in high school, and then the Texans end up getting beat, and they made a joke out of it, and that's why I turned to the lemon jackets game. It's no such thing as a lemon jacket. They wore lemon jackets all season. They wore them before that game, and then they wore them after the game. But after that game, they lost to the Patriots on Monday night. They came home. They beat the Indianapolis Colts and won the division. The next game, the game after that, they at home they lost to Minnesota, and in the last game of the season they lost at Indianapolis. Which again they would have won one of those 2 games against Minnesota and against the Colts. The last 2 games of the season they would have claimed #1 seed, and they lost both of them. They just need to win one. They lost both and went from being the 1 seed to the 3 seed. Was it the 3? Yeah, went from being the 1 seed to the 3 seed, and Denver was the 1 seed. No, no, were we the 4 seed? Couldn't have been. We couldn't have went to the 4 seed. It had to be the 3 seed. Yeah, had to be 3 seed. So Denver must have won the 1 seed then, cause we went to New England, and if we were the 3 seed, we wouldn't have played the 1 seed. We lost to New England, and Raheem Morris gave up a touchdown to I think to Jacoby Jones. This is Jacoby Jones. Reem Moore gave up a touchdown to Jacoby Jones, and the Ravens beat Denver. Was that game in overtime? I think it was. I think touchdown in overtime, and they lost to the Ravens. But that was playing your worst football going down the stretch. If the Texans playing, they bet this is when you want to play your going down the stretch. That's not, I went off on a tangent. I apologize. Uh, the Texans play their best football going down the stretch could set them up to be, like I said, the two. Cause I think that one seed's out the window, so forget about that. And I'm fine with it because actually I wasn't really. I was done with the one seed after yeah, after the Jets lost, the one seed out the window. Like we not ain't no even reason to discuss that one seed no more. Cause at that time the England was still on the feet. Like ain't no reason to discuss that one seed. Like that one seed out the window. Like forget that. Like let's get the number two seed. Like let's strive for number two seed, but then you have the Detroit game, and then you have the 10, and then the 10 game. You like forget it. I think that's really made people real upset with that Tennessee game. Well, people really upset. I think of the fashion that we lost that Detroit Lions game because of how they was up in the first half. But like I said, I do think that with all boils down to you gotta be playing your best football going down the stretch. And if you're playing your best football going down the stretch and doing that, it sets yourself up, especially the way the board is falling with some of these opponents, to put you in that type of position. And you want to be, like I said, you want to play your best football going down the stretch because if you are playing your best football going down the stretch, it could pay off huge dividends for you. And you want to be hot. You want to be hot. You want to be you want that momentum rolling. Like again, the way we were playing, how we were feeling, how we were feeling last year. We were playing well towards the end of the season and that propelled us to play well against Cleveland. Against Cleveland. We were playing well. What was another season? 2011. Now we did lose the last three games of the season because we won the division against We won the division against Cincinnati, and then we came home and lost to Cam Panthers. Then we went to Indianapolis on Thursday night and lost to Dan Orlowski and Indianapolis Colts on like the last play of the game because Reggie Wayne scored the game. And then the last game of the season we played against Tennessee home, but we ain't play our starters because our season was locked in. And Jay DeLone and what you call it played. What's his name? Jeff Garcia. Because if I'm not mistaken, Jeff Garcia started. And then Jay DeLone finished. I think like Jeff Garcia started the game, and then Jay DeLone finished it. And we scored a touchdown at the end to potentially tie the game. And we went for a two because Kubiak didn't want to go to overtime. She's like, either we gonna win or lose this game right here. Then we went for two, didn't make it. Tennessee won. So what to me it wasn't that big of a deal because you've already clinched. Like you already clinched, your spot wasn't moved. I understood you don't want to go in the overtime, an injury or anything like that. So you don't want that to happen. Kind of like the year that some of y'all probably don't remember this. The year the Texans were worst in football, the 2-14 season. Not the 14 straight, but this was 2005 because it was the following year we had the number one pick and we drafted Mario. The last game of the season, the Texans and the 49ers were playing against each other, and they both the loser of that game was gonna have the number one overall pick. Well, I mean, spoiler alert, we had the number one pick, we ended up drafting Mario. But that game, like funny enough, was like probably one of the Texans' most entertaining games. That game ended up going to overtime, and the Texans should have won that game on several occasions. Uh, and I don't think that they threw like they was trying to win that game. There wasn't a game where like, oh, they do it so they can get the number one pick, so they can get Reggie Bush. Actually, the Texans were trying to win that game. Like they really were trying to win that game, and just wasn't good enough and actually lost that game. But they really were trying to win that game. Like very just a very weird aspect of the game. But I just brought in just like that game went to overtime and wasn't nobody trying to like, oh, we gonna not go to overtime. We go like Smith did, how Lovie Smith like was not going to overtime. He gonna win or lose on this play, and we end up winning the game. End up having the number two pick instead of the number one pick. That was the situation with Don was the head coach then. It was a situation with Don Capers. Don Capers didn't have that bag. he had that club in his bag. Hey, we gonna go for two and try to either win this game or lose this game. But anyway, 'cause I went on. I apologize again. I have the Houston Texans against the Miami Dolphins winning 24-20. Like I said, I think that CJ's gonna have a he's gonna have a better, decent game. I don't know if he's gonna have. I don't know, and don't think that he's gonna have the performances that he had last year. I don't think he's gonna have a 350-yard plus game and 3 to 4 touchdowns. I think it's gonna be like a high two, low three, somewhere between like 380. I mean 280 to like 305, 310, 2 touchdowns. I think he's clean. He doesn't throw any interceptions. I think Joe Mixon gets 100 yards. I think he gets 100 yards and a touchdown. I think Nico gets another 100-yard game and a touchdown. Maybe he gets both touchdowns. Love to see it. Uh, and I think that Tua gets a couple touchdowns. And I think that Tua, who's a quarterback, has been throwing for average in the last 4 games 75%. It's over 75% actually. I don't think he gets that. I think he gets um right around like 60%, 65%. I don't think he throws for 300 yards. I think he throws in the twos himself. He probably does get cuts, but I do think he turns the ball over. I think he gives you an interception, and I do think that we're able to get to him at least twice and get 2 sacks on him. Uh, I got the team winning, like I said, 24-7. And then on the evening games, I have the Denver Broncos beating the Indianapolis Colts. I got Denver beating the Colts by a touchdown. I got Denver winning 17-10. I got Denver beating Indianapolis 17-10, and the Texans will clinch the AFC South. Uh, I got both Buffalo and Pittsburgh beating Detroit. I don't have the path opening, but I think it's a good chance. Uh, Man, shout out to everybody that came through. Definitely appreciate that. If you ain't hit the like button already, man, make sure you hit that like button. I'm gonna give y'all some time right now. If you ain't hit that button already, I'm gonna give y'all some time. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you ain't hit the like button already, make sure you hit that like button. I appreciate y'all. Shout out to that boy Chris for the super chat love. Definitely appreciate that. Definitely, you don't know how much that means. Definitely appreciate the super chat love. Appreciate everybody that came through here. Everybody hit the like button. Like I said, if you ain't hit it already, make sure you hit that like button. Remember, immediately after the game, right here, your boy, we live right here immediately after the game. We're gonna talk about. We're gonna break it down, and we could be watching the Texans together winning the AFC South because the Denver the Denver Indianapolis game is gonna be on while we on stream. We're gonna be watching the game and cheering and yelling about the Texans winning their 8th ever AFC South title. So we're gonna talk about it. Like make sure y'all be here immediately after the game. We're gonna break it down. I know next week gonna be a little bit different because we got a Saturday game, then we got a Wednesday game. You still get previews. Don't worry. You will still get a preview. You will get a preview next Friday, right before the Saturday night game. So you're gonna get a fresh preview game right before the game on Friday. And then the Christmas game, you're probably gonna get a Christmas Eve. This Christmas will be a very special for me. Dun, 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 dun. You will get a Christmas Eve. You will get a Christmas Eve stream before we gonna have a Christmas Eve. We're gonna have a Christmas Eve one before the game. So don't you worry. It's gonna be a very, very special Christmas for all of us. So don't worry. Have that. You will have the immediate breakdowns after the game, after the game next Saturday, after the game on Christmas Day. You will still get the breakdown. So don't worry. You still will get those things. So like I said, if you ain't hit the like button already, man, make sure you hit the button and make sure you will be here, right here, right here immediately after the game against the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. We're going to talk about, we're going to break it down. I said, shout out to everybody that came out here. Definitely appreciate that. I apologize that I didn't do anything on the week. I need to take some time off as well. Like I said, got real super busy. So I apologize that I wasn't here. But I'm here right now. And also, I've been working on some other things where you will get more content in the near future. I know I've been saying that like almost every stream. You will get, I've been working on some things, and you will get some content in the near future. As far as like consistent content, like a lot of it. Not just these lives that I've been doing before the game and stuff like that after the game. You will get more. So make sure you'll be here because hey, it is coming. Make sure you do. Make sure you appreciate all the love. I holla.